Alright everybody, so it's Tuesday. Let's see what we can do about this. Not about the fact that it's Tuesday. There's nothing you can do about the fact that it's Tuesday, except for wait until tomorrow where it's not Tuesday anymore. It's one of the unfortunate side effects of living in this universe is that we are kind of stuck with a linear forward path of time, but so be it. Okay, so first of all, you guys can see a reflection of me. I'm sitting cross-legged-ish, and this is as close as you'll get to seeing me for a while probably. But nonetheless, in my whiteboard, or on my whiteboard, I decided to go ahead and put out the argument for Satan on mankind's side. I'm hoping that you guys can read this. I will have to upload this in 720p, which means it's going to be a long one. It's also going to be very large, and also you guys are probably going to have to not necessarily go full screen, but you'll definitely have to get off of my channel and go to the actual video itself, and then hit the little loser bracket that pops it out to bigger. Okay, so first things first. This is what I was taught as a child, and this is what I was taught as a young adult when I was still going to church. So any sources, they don't exist. This is what I was taught. I could give you the names of my old pastors and you could talk to them about it, although they would probably know exactly who you were talking about if you gave them my age and possibly even this video. So probably a bad idea then. Also, they might not really like me dropping their names and phone numbers on the internet, although it would be interesting. Okay, nonetheless. Alright, so what we have is, first of all, you've got God. God's at the beginning, God's there. That's another thing. We're going to assume that everything that I was taught is actual and factual, just for the sake of argument. And remember everyone, I don't believe any of this anymore. So, first of all, you've got God sitting at the top. Not the top of the whiteboard, but at the top of the little diagram. God creates the angels, which includes Satan. Now, including Satan, all of the angels are given the free will. You know that they have free will due to the fact that, well, if Satan fell and if there was a war in heaven, then Satan had to be able to actually exercise his free will. Now, whether it was because he was jealous of mankind's free will and special place, or if he wanted to be as powerful as God, that was never exactly explained, but most of the time, at least in the dogma that I was taught, Satan already existed before mankind existed. And there is a verse in the Bible somewhere about princes of... oh, what was it? It wasn't kings of other planets. That's not what it was, but it was something that, when interpreted, it sounded as though the other planets and the other stars and everything else in the galaxy, that we're all sitting there going, well, why the hell did you make it so big if we're only going to sit here on Earth? Then the belief was, behind the interpretation of the verses, that those other planets were either once kingdoms that were ruled by angels or by a previous creation that failed. Also, there was the gap theory, and the gap theory was, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Gap. If you've never heard of the gap theory, there's a lot of stuff that's actually still taught. It's actually highly controversial in the Christian faith as to whether the gap theory makes any sense or not. A lot of people have used it, including myself in the past. I used it to justify my belief in dinosaurs living 65 to, 65 million plus years ago. In order for the earth to be as old as it is, you have to factor in the possibility that God created the heavens and the earth. Then something happened. That something that happened was described as catastrophic, like the giant meteor that hits the earth, hence my username. The giant meteor that hit the earth and wiped out all the dinosaurs, I have actually heard that translated and interpreted as Satan's fall to earth once God cast him out. when he hit that, even though it was in the spiritual realm, had a physical manifestation which blasted away all the dinosaurs, and God got to start all over. And later on, as soon as Genesis 1:2 picks up, doesn't make a whole lot of sense and can be picked apart rather easily if you believe it at all. So yeah, so anyway, God's at the top. God creates angels and Satan, which more than likely already exist before man is created. Now, one of the things that God apparently likes is the free will option. He likes to give everyone the option to say yes or no to allowing him to be the great and wonderful ruler over everything, including mankind and the angels. I would say that, again, if you believe all of this, if God actually created all of us and actually did create the angels, I would say that he kind of has, to a degree, a right to say, you know, I made you. You probably should at least give me some benefit of the doubt and, you know, love me at least a little bit. I mean, it's kind of like my parents. My parents may screw up all the time. My parents may do a bunch of stupid things. Looking back on my past, I see that my parents made a bunch of horrible decisions when it came to raising us children, but I still love them. So, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Now, when mankind sinned, which was a direct result of Satan and a third of the angels being cast out of heaven after the war in heaven, mankind sinned due to the influence of Satan on them. Now, the influence of Satan was to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, keep in mind, everybody, when you are referencing the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, remember it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not the tree of good and evil. It's also not the tree of knowledge. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's one of the main hiccups in the entire Christian faith, is that God created mankind without the ability to determine what was right and what was wrong, and prohibited them from eating of the fruit of the tree that would cause them to know the difference between right and wrong. Now, if God actually gave us free will, which, okay, if God actually gave us free will, but actually didn't want us to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then we would have never been able to practice our free will, because you would always be doing whatever, because you would never know that there was anything different. It's basically your favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla because the only flavor of ice cream that exists is vanilla. Now, the punishment for eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was expulsion from paradise, expulsion from God. And we were cut off from God the same way that God cast all of the angels that supported Satan and Satan out of heaven. So it's that ostracization from God that creates the situation that the biblical faith is built around. Because as I saw on, I can't remember whose account, I just subscribed to him today. It was a great video and it had to do with mythology of the Jesus story. He mentions that one of the differences in the Christian faith, one of the strange things about the Christian faith, is that in the Christian faith it's many times God trying to get back to humans as opposed to humans attempting to get back up to the gods. And so in the mythology, I'm pretty sure that his point was that in the mythology, Christianity is slightly unique because of the fact that God tried to get back to us. God worked to get back to humans to affect us, as opposed to humans simply trying to get up to God or up amongst the gods. So once we've been cut off from God, then that opens up the whole New Testament story and the gospel and Jesus. And that's where we're going to kind of stop there. We're not going to go into the Jesus story right now, just because there's not really any point. If you look at my little diagram here, you can see that the angels and Satan were expelled from heaven, which cut them off from God. And when mankind sinned, that cut them off from God. So the parallels between what happened to Satan and what happened to man, or basically any creation that God had that he gave free will to. Oh, that was a horrible sentence. Any of the creations that were created with free will by God eventually threw off God in one way or another. Now, in mankind's specific example in the Bible, they didn't know that they were cutting themselves off from God. They didn't know that there was anything wrong with what they were doing. So to punish them for it, for their ignorance, was a little silly. And actually very much proving God is just a completely and totally heartless bastard. But nonetheless, let's jump. I'm going to jump back up just a little bit here. And again, I'm hoping that you guys can read this. If you can't read it, then it's almost pointless for me to have written it down, but at least it's here. And it helped me to figure out my argument just a little bit. So let's back up to the battle in heaven. As you can see in the battle in heaven, there are two very good points that I came across in my head that really need to be addressed. Number one, for God to I'm sorry, I just watched a pickup truck drive by with a rebel flag proudly flying from its truck bed. Excuse my French, but I really hate this fucking place. That's the norm, by the way. And I'm only in Southern Ohio. I can't imagine how people deal with it further south. Alright. Calm down, calm down. Alright, we're good. Battle in heaven. Two things. One, in order for a battle in heaven to occur, God either is not omniscient and didn't know it was going to happen, or it was part of his plan for it to happen. Now, the war in heaven had to happen. Satan had to be a part of the story. Because if you don't have someone, well, you gotta have a bad guy. That's basically what it comes down to. And there would be no evil, there would be no sin in this world if it weren't for Satan. Therefore, in God's omniscience, he allowed a battle to erupt and a war in heaven to be fought. And here's the thing. If there is a battle, that means that lines were drawn, and that whether there were casualties or not, I don't know what happens to an angel or a demon when it gets, I don't know, zapped by another one. But in order for that to have happened, in order there to have been an actual battle, then God had to allow it to happen. And I'm not talking about just Satan saying, you know what, screw you, God, I don't like you. But an actual battle happening, which means that God wasn't either God wasn't paying any attention, God's not omniscient, or God allowed for there to be an actual outcome to the thoughts that were going on in Satan's head. Because if Satan says, you know what, I want to be more like God, and or I want to be God, so how about I gather all of my friends, which is a third of the angels according to what I was taught, and let's go to battle, and let's try and fight our way to the throne room, and then gut God. Now, if God is actually omniscient and all-powerful, then before the first swing was swung, God could have stopped it and gone ahead and cast out Satan with no battle, no war. So then my question is, when did God step into the battle? When did God finally expel Satan and his angels? Was it when they were winning? And again, if they were winning, then I mean, seriously, if Satan and his angels are winning the battle for heaven, and God only steps in when he realizes, oh shit, what does that say about God?